network subjects. I want to talk about fringy, nerdy, totally off-the-map things except for, I don't know, college students and media professors, and why some of these new technologies are going to help us in a quest that we all have, which is to create positive change in the world that we live in. And those lines are through communication, community, and collaboration. The collaborative structure is an essential one. We heard in the opening welcome this morning with our last speaker. So thinking about how can some of the new tools that we have, and also how can we design new tools to affect the change that we want. So I start with a very old story. A long time ago, very long time ago, the gods descended to earth in human form. And right now I'm thinking specifically of the Hindu pantheon, but if you look at almost any world religion, you can find this. So the Lord Vishnu, he came down to earth as Krishna, the lover and the warrior. This guy, Krishna. And Krishna is formally called Vishnu's avatar. In Sanskrit, the word avatar means to cross over, to descend, to go from a high spirit into the earth, or into a bodily form. So you have this charming, blue-faced guy who helps in war and helps in peace, because love is part of the peace process here. It's a very romantic tradition. So one of the questions that I asked when I started to look at what's happened here once we get this kind of social media explosion. Social media, for those of you who are in college, social media, what does it mean? Social network. What is social media? Facebook, Skype, email, SMS. Does anybody here use any of those formats? Okay. Does anyone in this room not use any of those formats? Does anyone here not have a cell phone? One person must not own a cell phone. Okay, so you are all involved. You've all participated in social media, and also what's coming online in terms of deep and important new space, mobile media, doing these things as we move around the world. So let's go back to the little bit more nerdy spectrum. When I get onto Halo and I'm playing, this is a game on an Xbox, or I'm playing Pong and I see a little figure moving the stuff around. What do we call that? What do we call that figure?
Avatar.
Yeah. We call it an avatar. I thought, so how did the gods end up in my Xbox and the avatar? And how does this all work? And I said, thank goodness, James Cameron shows up to make sense of it all for me, and maybe for the rest of us. Jake and his feline companion, whose name I actually didn't memorize this movie. I've got other movies I've memorized, but this one I just kind of watched. What's the relationship, other than being tall, blue, and handsome? What's the connection that we can make between Krishna and Jake Sully's? What is the avatar link? So what I'm suggesting the avatar link is Cameron, in classic science fiction fashion, he gives us a story in which, through a magic box new technology, we can port our experiences, everything we know, the things that we practice, our pains and our joys, filter it through into a new body that's 10 feet tall and has a tail. Now, what this guy does is not only does that avatar have your face, and with Sigourney Weaver, that was really chilling for me. I was like, oh, Lou Sigourney Weaver is so scary. I liked her better in Aliens. But you maintain your essential you. You're still you. You're just 10 feet tall and blue, and you've got a tail. And that's the magic. That's the magic of that story. That's the magic of this kind of science fiction technology, that you can scatter your bits across the world, your body, your mind, and all the rest of it, but somehow you, the things that you believe in, you're passionate about, they emerge. And for me, that's the crucial thing about why we're in this kind of accelerated media moment, but there's also kind of ubiquitous expansion of avatars. And I'll give you a little bit more of a kind of running definition of how I see avatars now. We don't quite yet have this magic technology where we can literally jump ourselves into a new body, but we are spreading ourselves all over the place. So in Hello Avatar, in the book that I put together, I say email, emoticons, Skype, voice over IP, that kind of mediated face-to-face, your Facebook profile. Some of these are 2D still avatars, Second Life, your game avatars in WoW. They're all avatars, and even though they have different affordances, different technical abilities, and different places that they go to, and the main point for me in terms of looking at avatar culture is, how do we represent ourselves all over the place across a network, and what power do we have to make change using our proxies? So let me bring you into a different story, and just one more. So avatars, agency, and X-reality, going from avatars to how does agency show up, and then this idea of X-reality, which was really the space of designing for the worlds that we want to make, and also picking up and using the things that are available. Just one more. I would say Lady Gaga gets Avatar. She's a living avatar where she keeps shape-shifting around, and I can't understand how Slim Shady can look so shocked at Lady Gaga. She's like, well, but you helped make that avatar stuff happen to me. Okay, so back to the story. 2007, Second Life, which is a virtual world platform. A virtual world is a world that lives on a network. So like a game, you go there, a massively multiplayer online game, you go there in real time, so we're happening at the same time. We're meeting in the same space because it's visualized. We all are seeing the same thing together. And yeah, those are the two important things, that we're shared visual space and real time. And in some ways, what it offered was quite amazing. And they were talking about like the Davos World Economic Forum. There was a dinner party about Second Life. Like really important people were talking about Second Life. And I thought, well, why? What's being offered here? Because in some ways, this just seems like, super nerdville, which I love, but not everybody loves that. So I spent some time in there, and I spent time in there as a little robot because I couldn't bear to be human because it looks so absurd. If you walk around you walk like this a little bit, you're like, oh, like the failures in terms of how we can represent things and where we are with some of the technology, like we're far along, but we're still kind of in an uncanny valley moment where it's not quite perfect and beautiful, and we can ask for perfect and beautiful. So what I found is, in this virtual world, you could literally make castles. You and your friends could get together, figure out how to script and build in this world, which wasn't that hard, and you could make a castle. You could fly. You could have dance parties. You could make a feast. Because it was virtual, there were no material limitations. And that is a magic moment to say, everyone can fly, everyone, because it's programmed, can dance, no matter how bad a dancer you are, and everyone can build like this great condo or speedboat, whatever it is. So that ability to collaborate together and literally build a space, that was part of what people I thought were getting excited about. But very quickly for me, the downside was, it's virtual. I can't take that condo back out into the world with me. I still can't fly. And I thought, that's really not good enough. We're at a moment in time where it's not, my judgment is, and I think I shared this with some other people, it's not good enough to just bury yourself deep in a box and get lost in a virtual world. Not only are there demands on us to make this world better, but it's the greatest pleasure in the world to participate in the world that we have. So I thought, great things about collaboration, but how do we export that? So I started to think about Where do we find exportable things? Where do we find a space of X-reality where, for people who don't do media studies, you're like, why do we need X-reality? We have the world. But I'll say a little bit why we need X-reality coming from a position of media studies. Back in the Dark Ages, we talked about the Dark Ages earlier, in the 1990s, before there was the web and people were on the internet, primarily what they were looking for was information. And it was a revolution that you could search for this paper on physics, find it someplace, and then maybe even talk to that physicist. And it was largely physicists and computer scientists and a few students and the military who were on the internet. So then we have the web. 1995, it's fantastic, but this is the beginning of a graphical universe. We can see things. 2010, we've got Facebook, we've got Skype, we can see a lot of things. So we see a track where the network world is increasingly visual, so that's an important part of it, because in visualization, we also get a more and more strong sense of being present to each other. When you're on the phone, you feel like you're connected to each other, and then when you're on Skype, you feel even more connected. And the reason I think so is it's not just me, it's who knows who the newest and largest user group is, user adoption on Skype? You guys as groups? No.
Migrant workers?
Grandparents. Of course. Grandparents. You guys are actually might be too young to grandparents. Grandparents, because forget about, you don't know how to do anything on the internet, or, oh, there's text messaging and I can't see the screen. Forget about that. The grandparents have learned to text, and they Skype. They also write on their kids' walls and Facebook, and grandparents don't do that. They learned how to Skype because they want to see their grandchildren. And where are they going to see their grandchildren? They know they can find them in front of a computer screen. So these are important transitions in terms of how the new tools help us in doing what we want to do. Okay, so let me get back to X-reality. Leading Second Life and heading into a world where we have a network that's going on, and it's increasingly ubiquitous. Ubiquitous computing is a technical term where you have a cell phone and has all these things that you can do. Technically speaking, that's a kind of ubiquitous computing, and also pervasive in terms of we're walking along armed with these things. How does it augment our realities? And I thought that's what I'm interested in, augmenting our realities, creating tools. So you want to help someone organize the students on campus because you've got a lot of secondhand bikes and some people with some knowledge. You need some of these things to show up in the same place at the same time. So we have a website where we can sign up, and we also have a text system. So I broke down who's got a pump, help me out here. We can find each other on demand and on the go. So that's just a tiny example of something that it would literally take you 3 hours to put together that system for this campus if it doesn't already exist. Take that idea, you export it to something that's more challenging, or bigger, or more unknown. And it's important for us to think about agency here as not just being those of us who have a gizmo or who have an education. Agency is everyone. And if we're designing things, we're making a system, we're creating, helping to facilitate a community, we're listening to what everyone has to say here. So this is big, so it's a little bit abstract, but the next billions of cell phones, it's Africa, it's Asia, it's China. And I say Africa, Asia, China, it also almost means nothing because you get so much differences in terms of, well, which part of Asia are you talking about, and which parts of Africa, et cetera, et cetera. These might not be iPhones. In fact, chances are, unless a lot of things happen, they won't be iPhones, but it doesn't matter. What you have there is an augmented reality where we have already case studies. The group of fishermen in this village, with having access to very simple SMS, can help regulate what the price is for fish before they bring it to marketplace. So you see a direct impact in terms of people's lives, how a little bit of technology can help shift the world that we're living in, the world that we want to live in. The three spaces that you want to look at in terms of where we're seeing some big changes is sensors, Internet of Things. So every object being tagged in such a way that it's findable and can have impact, as opposed to just being me and a computer. Microphone, whoops, sorry, don't touch. If we're finding things, if things are trackable, and it's not just things. This room, we have the sensors going on, so we know when everyone has come in. We know individually because the carpet on the floor, your weight, your heat, your whatever your tag is. There are things that we can read about, our gestures and our spaces. So the rest of the world is coming online. So the difference between here's a virtual and here's a real, that's even more gone because the whole world is networked. We're getting connectivity a certain way. And if you want to look at some interesting projects, look at Sensible Cities, Carlo Rotti's lab at M.I.T, where they're censoring up areas and saying, okay, we can actually do better with how trash is being removed or recycling is being done because people are participating in these kind of accounting systems. So that's one of them. Another one is augmented reality and alternate reality games, creating a game layer on top of the world in which we live to model certain kinds of behavior. I want to do better with weight loss, or I want to do better with conserving water. I can design a practice around this, which both experimental research and our daily sense of what we do in the world, we get an experience that is kind of a playful one, and then we can bring it into our lives. And then the last space is data visualization. More and more of what we do can be compiled to get an understanding, a pattern, and some of that's freaking scary because it's all about, oh, I'm just signing up for surveillance culture, but some of it is empowering because we can look at what we're doing. We can have a better sense of how did this all come together and how can we do it better next time. Okay, so my question is, if human agency is the disruptive technology of our time, what worlds do you want to build? That's not rhetorical.